So, what is going on in Serie A? Well, it's all but confirmed basically that Juve have won the title. Currently, they're playing against Udinese and they're drawing 1-1. But if they win tonight's game, which is very likely to happen, they will be champions for the ninth time in a row. Basically, complete the whole decade. Well, all but one. I mean, Milan did win the first in 2010, 2011, but um, complete dominance and a complete sour end, a dud, really, to the title race. And what was a very promising title race was abruptly ended by more than likely and more than plausible by COVID, perhaps. I mean, especially if you look at the form of Lazio. I think they've only won one game and lost and drawn one and lost. They've kind of lost their mojo, having been prior unbeaten in 21 games. Inter Milan, since the lockdown, have played 10, won only 5, drawn 4, lost 1. Only kept 3 clean sheets. So, yeah, I think that explains it in itself. I mean, a very demotivated and under the weather esque morale, poor morale in Lautaro Martinez, who hasn't really completely switched off, or completely just taken a massive detour off a cliff, means that we've the output for those creations that Inter have been producing and the chances have not been put to bed, basically, and that has really led to the same old tropes coming back, resurfacing about Pazza Inter, crazy Inter, which, contextually speaking, is a sad turn of events, and is a continuation of this kind of downturn in Inter Milan's contemporary history. So, for those who don't know about what Pazza Inter is Crazy Inter, and it was from the song Pazza Inter Amala, which was an anthem back in the day being 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, etc., when Inter were known to have a sense of a winning mentality through Machiavellian means, aggressive, always at the forefront of play, either defensive or counter-attacking, or in possession or off possession. Inter just always imbibed with this sense of inspiration and adrenaline to just keep on going and to just put away to completely dispatch the opposition. And then that has then flipped on its head since 1989, which is when Inter last won the title in the last century, when Inter started to go through a kind of lost decade, if you like, where all these talented players, like from the likes of Bergkamp to Berti to Zenga to Zamorano to Ronaldo to Baggio to Vieri to Recoba to Matthaus to Klinsmann, whatever, an array of talent, World Cup winning players, Ballon d'Or players, we had the whole lot, basically, failed to kind of seize on this kind of reputation, or to honor that reputation, if you like, to kind of inspire, navigate and guide Inter Milan to victory, to unprecedented victory, serial winners, if you like. Instead, that was taken in the first part of the 90s by AC Milan, and in the late part of the 90s by Juventus. And that's where Pazza Inter came in, where Inter were complete collapse, and then the kind of slow, gradual resurgence, coming in a couple of second places here and there under Luigi Simone, for example, and the kind of controversial situation in '98 against Juventus, when a penalty was when a questionable foul, a dubious foul, on Ronaldo in the penalty box was ruled out by the referee, and then players Inter Milan kind of lost their composure, complained at the referee, and Juventus capitalized on that opportunity to play a quick, swift counter-attack to score, led by Zinedine Zidane, Edgar Davids and co. And by Edgar Davids and co, basically when leading the counter-attack, which was then failed to come into fruition because of a foul in the penalty box. Referee then awards the penalty for Juventus, penalizes Inter. The penalty was saved, but then I believe it was saved by Pagliuca. But I think the results, the fact that Inter Milan felt kind of hard done by, felt aggrieved by the decision, having needed to win the game in order to win the title and to build on that momentum, chasing Juventus, they felt hard done by. And then some Inter Milan fans and others, actually any fan but Juventus and AC Milan, believe that was the prelude to Calciopoli 8 years later. That was the kind of rebirth of two things in that case: the Pazza Inter in the negative sense, in the kind of counterintuitive sense, paradoxical sense, if you like, and then obviously the Calciopoli suspicions about this kind of conspiracy going on behind the scenes, or this part of this detrologia, this behindology as they call it in Italy, where politics and football are intertwined and kind of bias or distort the football, the prestige of the game, and the kind of distort the, if you like, the kind of bring the game into disrepute by distorting the integrity, or kind of biasing results or certain events, being treated differently, systematically being treated differently, like in this case and in Calciopoli's case, in favor of Juve mainly against other teams, based on extortion or blackmail or intimidation. This is the kind of simplification. There is quite a kind of complexity, but I don't want to get involved because it's too legal and too technical, and that's not the remit of a fan like me. I know nothing about law, so not that I'm lawless, but I don't know about the ins and outs of this situation. So that is what the Pazza Inter then was all about. Kind of the ups of the 60s and 70s and 80s, late 80s, and then the downs of the 1990s. The mini resurgence, which was like a little spike, it's like a minor spike basically. And then the big, where Pazza Inter has become now immortalized by every opposition and every other opposition's fans, is the 2002 situation, the May 5th, 2002, where Inter Milan came into the game a point ahead of Juve, having been, I think, 6 points ahead of Juve in March, since March, and then kind of stuttering along. Poor performances. Juve came in kind of inspired form, winning all of their games, basically. They were on a massive winning streak. Inter Milan draws and losses, losses, draws, etc. against the likes of Atalanta and etc. and Perugia, I believe. And then the last day, basically, Inter Milan basically had to win the game, having been they had the risk of losing. If they didn't win, they could even risk going third, because Roma were 2 points, I believe, 2 points behind Juve, and so were 3 points behind Inter. So basically, Inter Milan had to win, came into the last day a point ahead, had to win the game, and they lost to Lazio, and both Roma and Juve won. So that I think Inter came, I think, second. They managed to get second by a goal difference or head to head, but they lost the title, and that's where the big furore came into. Inter, bottle jobs under Hector Cooper, the best. That was the last season to get something for Ronaldo, who was just at the peak of his powers. In 2002, goes obviously to win the World Cup 2 months later. And yes, so basically we did not. The main point of Pazza Inter in is this kind of sudden change of events, change of fortune, misfortune, if you like, from this sudden unprecedented glory and success under Elenio Herrera by kind of this Mourinho-esque style of football, catenaccio, but with a hint of pragmatism and charisma and psychological warfare. And then under Trapattoni, we won loads and loads. We did well. There was a revival there, or consolidation under a zona mista, mixed zonal mixture of catenaccio and zonal marking or zonal play. And then under Luigi Simone, we had that situation, that controversial situation against Juve in '98, and then under Hector Cooper, the kind of capitulation, which is, I think, is a better way of describing Pazza Inter, because Pazza Inter is now used as a derogatory term, and is not even now included in the anthem. It was once an anthem, but now because it's been used as a derogatory term against Inter Milan, it's a kind of politically incorrect term that has now been completely consigned to the history books, to the dustbins. Basically, it's not even mentioned. It's one of those taboos that you just don't bring up in Inter Milan. So now I say the word capitulation, maybe capitulazione, maybe in Italian, I don't know actually, but yeah, so that's the Pazza Inter. That is why the title of this video, and I feel like we start to see this thing again. And basically, what Conte was there for is to kind of bring a new era of dominance, of resurgence, of a monopoly, to challenge the Juventus hegemony, and to get rid of this Pazza Inter label that maybe we could be able to bring back and bring this Pazza Inter in a kind of renewed interpretation, if you like, a new version of Pazza Inter, maybe on a different meaning or a different word, but connotations that would romanticize the old rather than the contemporary, if you like. But again, like we've seen in the last 3 seasons, yes, Inter have been a lot better than the last decade, or since Jose Mourinho was there, when we obviously won the treble. We see it now with Spalletti. We saw it with Spalletti, this kind of doing well in winter and then completely capitulating, pulling up the handbrake, as Arsene Wenger would say. It's kind of a Spurs, but Spurs, they kind of similar to a Spursy, if you like, but even more, I think, with a bit more prestige, I'd say, because Inter obviously have won more titles and a bit more, established. But it's become unlike Spursy, which has kind of been a recent phenomenon under Pochettino, is kind of been a recent construct. This Pazza, I don't want to say Pazza Inter anymore. I'm gonna annoy a lot of people. This kind of capitulation has become a time-honored tradition, if you like. It's just become part and parcel of contemporary Inter, and we hope that while Spalletti has made strides with his kind of possession-based football that I'm going to talk about in a minute, talk about its residual presence in Conte's system, and kind of owning the pitch, being the protagonist, to use Emery's terms, and owning the dominating territory. Still, he has capitulated in the second half of the season, in both of his seasons, and we just managed to scrape fourth in both seasons on the final day. Conte, obviously, with the winning mentality, a more short-term manager, if you like, if you could put it in that way, would able to get us, with the trophies and back on the bounce, and perhaps being from the establishment, being from Juventus, he might be able to bring some winning mentality into this team that is much needed, be able to inject that much needed reinvigoration, if you like, that boost. But unfortunately, recent performances has proven otherwise. So what's the problem? So the main issue that we're seeing is that, as I said, in the last 10 games we've won 5, we've drawn 4, which is the draws that have costed us. So which is a progress on one hand, as before we were winning and we were losing, we would have lost those 4 games perhaps. We're now drawing, yes, but we're still not winning those games, and especially against the teams of Fiorentina yesterday, where Inter Milan had 27 shots, 19 of them on target, and failed to get a goal, win the game. But I always make say his name wrong. Terracciano. Terracino. Oh yeah, I think Terracciano. I'm very bad with his name. Terracciano. He was inspired from the goalkeeper of Fiorentina. Basically, was inspired from, and then Bologna, where Inter lost that game, having been 1-0 up for basically dominating the game for 75 minutes. Completely capitulated, loss of confidence, caught in a counter-attack, holding too much of the ball, which has been a Spalletti situation, which we're now seeing in Conte's recent. I think it's a sign of nervousness that's when Inter are nervous, they seem to slowly progress, slowly progress up the pitch, and reduce the tempo significantly, which gives more time for the opposition to press or to to get the troops together and etc. So Bologna, so we lost to that one, but again, two players were in inspired form, who are the future of Italian football, because in Juwara and Musa Barrow, who both scored the two goals to beat Inter. We then see against Hellas Verona, 2-1 up, and then 86th minute we can see the goal again. So Inter Milan, had they have won those 3 games, I think, in my opinion, I think that would be 9 points. We're currently on 73 points. That would basically, there were 2 draws and a loss there. So a simple arithmetic would show that we would have gained 2, 4, 7 points, which would have brought us to 80 and a point behind Juventus, who are currently on 81 as we speak. So where has it gone wrong? Lautaro Martinez, as I mentioned at the start, his form has completely dipped. I don't know why. He's not confident. He's holding the ball a lot more. He's making more touches. He's lost that instinct. I think he's belied his instincts, if you like. Has gone against them completely. Often frustrating the attack. When I say frustrating the attack, because he often is overlapping with players, like he did a couple of times against Roma with Brozovic. He just seems to get in people's ways. He's like an obstacle, a banana skin for his own team, self-inflicted wound, if you like. It's just his movement is misaligned with the counter attack. Whereas we've seen recently Sanchez kind of go to his best form. Go back to his Hallison days with his excellent movement, out and then in, confusing and dizzying the defense, tearing up spaces, creating spaces and tearing up defensive lines, which is lovely. But yeah, I mean, Lautaro Martinez is the main guy at the moment. He is the focal point of this Inter Milan team, I have to say, and really without the reason why is because he's good at basically everything. He's a very complete player. He's pacey. He can play out wide. If you pull him out wide, it's not a problem for him. He'll find his way in. He's got excellent movement. He's got a powerful foot. He's aerially competent. I mean, he's not very tall, but he's got a leap on him. So he's able to challenge and contest the ball, and get the second ball, So we haven't seen that. We've kind of seen a lack of confidence in him, and maybe it's because of the Barcelona rumors, where he's rumored, or there's been a muted interest in him in Lautaro Martinez. But yeah, these things, they happen, and maybe it's just got to his head. The defense is another thing, and the defense is a bit of a worrying thing in general, because Inter have only kept 10 clean sheets this season, and a Conte side is known for his defensive prowess as well as his kind of blitz attacking style of play, the swift counter attack. So that kind of competency, even in defense, the spine, where we're seeing, which is the usual 3, Skriniar, De Vrij and Godin, kind of have failed to get to kind of fend off attackers, assailants in the box, especially Godin, who really has been whose pace has been who's been exposed by whose performances have exposed him a lot in the media for his lack of pace and the kind of signs of old age. Is he not able to sustain his performances or play to the best of his ability, and what we expect, and play to what we expect And like the Atletico days, is this kind of a damage limitation, a kind of busted flush kind of Godin who's just kind of riding out through the sunset and in the twilight of his career, etc. I don't know. I mean, that has been the question for the whole season. But Conte's given him a lot of faith. Obviously, you have to consider with Godin, the guy's been used to playing with two centre backs. Yeah, with another centre back in a back four. So he's been in a back two, if you like, two centre backs. And in Conte's team, it's a back three. Sorry. Yeah, so it's a different system, it's mixture of it's a zone of mistake, mixture of marking and mixture of covering spaces. It's not like under Simeone. It's just staying in your area and marking the guy tightly. Here you have to move, and the inability to move, or this kind of languidity, this kind of sense of awkward movement, not comfortable on the ball as well as off it, does raise a lot of questions. De Vrij has perhaps been the best, so that's one problem. So De Vrij has been the best defender so far. I mean, he's really saved us a lot of times with his excellent positioning, his confidence on the ball. He's very good on the ball, and his towering headers, like the one he scored against Roma. Another issue now, and this is something that we wouldn't expect. It does happen to footballers, but another player that is concerning, or has kind of lost form at the wrong time, at a critical time, is Skriniar. Becoming a lot more rash, caught out of position, covering a lot of ground, catching up on lost ground, basically. So he's caught out of position, and then he's going to have to run more and exert a lot of energy, gets a lot tired, a bit reckless, and now he's been replaced by the next generation of defenders in Bastoni, who is known for his, these kind of new defenders. They play a lot more fearlessness. They are more direct. They will overlaps. They like to play direct and straight, like Sheffield United. We see with their centre backs, overlapping play. So they go straight in the middle, like a libero, goes straight in with a lot of freedom, goes to the midfield, and will try and fend off. Register players, or players that are playing a lot deeper, midfielders that are playing a lot deeper. So they are playing like the first line of defense, or the sacrificial lamb. Basically, what you achieve by doing that is that you disrupt. You get rid of the main man in the opposition team. You disrupt their play, and obviously you need cover, which you get from Brozovic, or now Gagliardini, because Brozovic has pushed up a lot more. And by really going in there and playing the sacrificial lamb, and going in there head first in the shallow pool, what you're doing, that you're trying to disrupt this team. You're trying to provide your midfield with a bit more time and space, basically. So Bastoni is capable, is confident of going up front, going forwards. Great. I drop back a lot deeper. He's hard to dispossess, by the way, which is another great complementary strength to his game. So that means he's not going to lose the ball. He can really draw in midfielders out wide, which will then liberate the wing backs, which is the key point of Conte's game. Wing backs, which is good, especially against an opposition with a back four. Provides a lot more space, a lot more width. Midfielders can then go around, can surround Bastoni, provide him with an extra layer, provide more width down the wings, free up the strikers, forces the defenders to push high, or to press high, to support the opposition defense, the opposition's register, or the CDM, or the CM, whatever you want to call it. So it's a really nice tactic to have, and we see that with Sheffield United as well, which is nice. It's kind of novel ways of using the back three, where one is in Godin is just a pure centre back who's just there as the last line of defence, just as a defender, just will get the ball, prevent the opposition from scoring. You have De Vrij, who's a ball playing centre back, provide the balls out wide, or come for, and he's very tall, so he'll come in for crosses, able to get some goals, able to initiate the counter attack or stimulate the counter attack. And then you have Bastoni, who's playing like a libero, who goes in direct to try and disrupt the opposition midfield, try and draw out, which would then drawing out more opposition midfield players in the lateral positions inwards, liberate the wing backs who are more offensively minded in Moses and D'Ambrosio, or Young and now I've forgotten the other guy's name, Candreva, or whoever, who are more offensively minded. They can go bomb up, support and provide some overloads if needed, or to kind of, again, outlet for a counter attack, free up Lautaro Martinez, allow him to do that movement, him and Sanchez to kind of intertwine, do that kind of DNA helix movement, in and out, this dizzy, to confuse and to contort the pitch, basically, if you like. And yeah, provides opportunities. It's a way of creating chances. It's a nice way of doing it. Sheffield United are known for doing that. So it's a nice alternative that's Antonio Conte is considering, because Antonio Conte likes to play the vertical game. He likes to play direct, but he realizes that he's a pragmatist. So he realizes that the best way of playing direct might mean that you have to engage with the wing backs a lot more, to push them up, free up space in the middle, and then have late runners like Gagliardini or Brozovic running in, or Barella, Barella and Brozovic to make late runs into the box and provide chances. But he now is provided a kind of an alternative. You've got a defense that runs in, very hard to dispossess, with a lot of freedom on the ball, doesn't carry a lot of pressing responsibilities because of what he brings to the team. Midfielders are kind of lured in, and that disrupts their shape, their rhythm, provides more space for the midfielders either to surround and provide like a kind of reinforcement ring, or provide outlets, provide space. Gosh, I lost my train of thought. Either to provide a reinforcement ring in case something happens, you never know with the play, or to actually provide them with the space to provide the incisive pass or an outlet to sustain the counter attack. And then that would meanwhile, you free up, the strikers are freed up because they're not going to be man marked anymore. We have to try and deal with Bastoni, who is likely to be I'm not saying that the guy goes in charging in by himself. He's supported by the likes of Gagliardini or Vecino, but he's injured. But because of his direct style of play and his overlapping style of play, in which he goes forward and Gagliardini does drop a bit back. It doesn't go into centre back, but because reason why is because he's not able to play in defence, and he's not that defensively minded. But because also you got two that can play in a back, with two, you got Godin and you got De Vrij, who can play in that kind of back two, so it goes from a back three to a back two, both of whom are comfortable. So that's a nice. So there are kind of silver linings, if you like. Right. So another issue that we're seeing is that the system that Conte is playing, the 3-4-3 or the 3-4-1-2, is not compatible at times. We're seeing this kind of, especially around players like Eriksen, around players like Barella, who like to have time on the ball, and Conte is known for his intensity. It's always 100 miles per hour, even on a residential road or on the A40. It's 100 miles per hour wherever he goes. And certain players like to drive 20 miles per hour in residential roads, and at times they want to drive 50 miles per hour in the M40. I don't know, but his style is not accommodating to the play. It does not accommodate the players that he has at his disposal, and vice versa. The players are not accommodating, or not complying, or not compatible, or not able to play with the system that they are tasked at hand. So what does that mean? Conte has to, and I love Conte, but I think he's kind of made a mistake in going out in the press, demanding that he wants Eriksen, he wants Kante, he wants, I forgot who else he wanted. He wants Vidal, all these players that Vidal, maybe I can understand from his Juve days and his disruptive play and a bit of aggression. Although you have Vecino, I don't know. All these players that go in, these ready-made players, because obviously they will get you the results they experience. I don't think they've really fit in the system, really. I don't think they do. Kante, I can understand, but he hasn't played for a year and a bit. I mean, when I say, I'm not saying I don't know, maybe he's played regularly, like 10 or 15 games, but not a lot. He's not played a lot or as frequently as we used to. That's why I'm saying he's been out of the game 2 years, if you like, or in and out of the game rather 2 years, thanks to Sarri, and then continued by Lampard. But so I don't know how he would cope. And in a game in a league where it's less physical but more tactical, I think Kante could get sussed out. I think man marking is a big thing in Italy. They are it's the league of experts of catenaccio, the bolt, where they will just shut up shop, and just stop him, create a block and prevent Kante from progressing. Okay, he's got the ball, he intercepts, great. Okay, what's he going to do? Passing lanes will be blocked, or someone will press at him, and he's not the most physical guy as well. So I don't know. And considering he hasn't played in a long time, or hasn't played frequently or at a high level for a long time, I don't know what that really means. So that's an issue. So I don't think the system that he wants, if he wants a system where it's 100 miles per hour, which some say this is idealistic for a pragmatic manager, and to a certain extent I agree, he needs players that are just engines, that just keep running and physical as well, because his game is a physical game. Lukaku's a good example, great signing, well done. Moses is good, quite physical, aggressive guy. Could improve on his crossing at the final third, but good signing. He was very good at Chelsea. I'm trying to think of other players that would be good. Vidal, perhaps. Yeah, I can understand Vidal because he is a very physical guy, and although I'm worried that they might use him as in the false 10, as they say, in the Fulani position, as Van Gaal would say, and you kind of provide them as the kind of crosses into the box, 90-minute goals, and that. I don't think that's not the best. This isn't. I don't want that. I'm worried about that. That's not how it should go. But who would be ideal? I'm trying to think on top of my head. A player, that can play deep, that can circulate the ball, regulate the tempo, but will not be pressed out or man marked or pushed or pressured. I can't think of one on the top of my head, but that intensity and that industry that you're looking for in a much more advanced and deep position. Maybe a Kante in deep, but the advanced position in the sense of Eriksen is not. You're not going to get that from Eriksen. I mean, he's been criticized by, or he's kind of being criticized by, not criticized, but his biggest weakness is that, as we've seen through, when exposed by Pochettino recently. This season, and Mourinho as well, even though the meager, he's played a couple of times under him, but even though in those flashes, we still see that Eriksen finds it very hard to cope with the demands and the intensity of managers who are not that keen on, Mourinho's not mad on pressing, but, loves players to run and commit. Pochettino is a big pressing fanatic, but it's not like Conte where, drop back in the count, you're going to run 100 meters to get the ball, and then you're going to run back 100 meters against the counter. Pochettino is a bit more regulated than Conte, who wants you going 100 meters to get the ball, and you're going to go 100 meters to get the ball. Okay, then you've been dispossessed, you're going to go and then run back to prevent the counter. So, and go back and support your defense. Eriksen can't do that. So, who in an advanced position, because who's going to do that? I mean, I can't think of one really on the top of my head, and I think he's going to bring I forgot his name. God, I'm bad with names. The one from Brescia, I think. Tonali, yes. I think he might be useful. I mean, I don't know, but we shall see. But again, maybe the players that he's got in his disposal and the players that he wants to get, or that I'm hearing or that I'm reading that he wants to get, might not be the most appropriate. I don't know, unless he can make them. He can make significant changes, radical changes overnight. I don't know. So there's that mismatch. ironically, these players that he have at his disposal, and I did allude to this previously, suit Spalletti's football quite well. Spalletti plays the they say 4-6-0 back in his Helison days at Roma, but also the 4-2-3-1, which is what he's well known, which then becomes a 4-3-3. Having Eriksen sit in the number 10 role, and having Brozovic in a regista role, or the number 6 role, and Barella in the number 8, works with who are all possession-based players or possession-minded players. Works. So, ironically, the players that Conte has got actually are more befitting to Spalletti and his football, where there is that slow, there is that passing it out in squares, trying to find gaps, no long balls, wingers play a traditional role in providing crosses or an alternative outlet, try and frustrate the opponent, draw them in, etc. with this kind of patient, sensible build-up play. Those players actually fit with Spalletti's vision of football. So had they got those signings, I'm wondering, had they have got those players last season, maybe Inter would have done a lot better. I don't know. It's a counterfactual, but I don't know. So I'm just finding that there is these kind of players are misaligned with the players that are brought in, because many of the manager himself, Conte, are completely incorrigible or mismatched or misaligned with the manager's own style of play and with the current time. Had they have had Spalletti, had this been Spalletti, I would understand these players. That yes, they fit in the system, and that Brozovic will provide the cover and will be able to support Barella. Barella can engage and with Eriksen. Eriksen can go forward. Barella will fill in. Brozovic can provide that cover. He doesn't need a supporting player like Gagliardini. He can cover the whole pitch. He's got excellent movement, excellent pressing abilities, so he's fine. But I'm just wondering to myself, these players, this midfield, except Sensi, who I think is a very, very good player, and I think he does fit with Conte very well. Very intense, very creative, very intuitive player. Got a lot of spatial awareness, but also tactical awareness in respect to the manager's demands and expectations. Good signing, yes, but unfortunately he's injured. Vecino, I can understand, because he's a very aggressive player. Obviously Uruguayan, that's what they are known for in the footballing world. Very aggressive, tactical fouls, able to cover ground. Bentancur as well in Juventus, for example, would be a perfect player for Conte-esque. I mean the guy is like Marquisio at the moment. So I'm just trying to wonder. I understand the logic, or perhaps the comparison with Pirlo. I'm not saying that they're both the same, Eriksen and Pirlo, but using his logic, bring Eriksen in. He can do the Pirlo work, or he can play Pirlo but a bit more advanced, and then we'll have the Marquisio role or the Pogba role, even given to Brozovic, even though Brozovic plays more like a Marquisio than a Pogba. Anyways, trying to find this template, fit these players in this template, but unfortunately their profiles are quite different. Eriksen can't sit deep and play a deep lying role. He can't then fetch out to do the Scholes or do the Pirlo 200-yard pass, regulate the tempo and do it quickly as well, which Pirlo used to do. Quick. He didn't take his time, have a sip of coffee or an espresso, and then do it. Also, another thing is that Eriksen's doing it a lot advanced as well, where you're going to deal with more, where it's much difficult to do so, to slow down and to slow the tempo down, and pick up an incisive pass, when that's the most compact, concentrated, dense positions, which is full of opposition players, which is the main site of man marking. If it's not the striker, it's then the CAM who is creating those chances. Which is why we saw against Roma, Brozovic was then brought forward and Eriksen didn't play, but Conte brought Brozovic in the cam role because he can press and he can press on it again, press the centre backs who like to play it out wide and play it from the back, but also beat the press if ever there's an opportunity where he has the ball, he has to collect the ball compose and then move. He can beat that press. He's not like an Eriksen where he will just hold it. Look, check the time, look, and check the time, and then come for a pass. So I'm trying. What's my main point is that I feel like the players that he's got, or that he's mooted, where he's shown mooted an interest in, or registered an interest in, from the media and from the interviews, don't seem to match. I don't know where they would fit in this system of his. And I'm trying to say that had this happened a year ago, I might be able to understand what is going on. We're playing, there's a transition here in managers. Spalletti is a possession-based manager who likes, who's not direct. He's very horizontal. He's very integrated in his approach. Who's very slow tempo, less methodical. A bit more refined than the Van Gaal of United, to give people a perspective. Conte likes to play swift counter-attacking with a stable defence, with clear passing patterns and clear overloads, and find ways of creating as much space as possible to ensure a kind of seamless vertical play, which without any turnover, with as little turnovers as possible, and as with beaten by where players can beat the press and can through their movement and through the exchanges of passes. Their movement will then open up. Basically, the movement will open up space, and then that will then open up space for passing late. Gosh, I can't even speak today. The movement will open up space. That space will then create passing channels for the defenders or for whoever has got the responsibility of playing the deep lying role or to set the tempo. So that's the problem. Now, so that's my main. My main concerns is, to sum up, Pazza Inter. Pazza Inter is perhaps now used as a mocking term. It's a derogatory term. So I like to use the word capitulation, basically, where Inter start off, where history suggests that Inter kind of bottle it on the last day or the penultimate match day. Now we're seeing actually Inter come in with a rich reign of form until winter, and then after winter, Inter seems to kind of wither and decay. The main purpose of Conte is to assert his own authority and to impose an authoritative stamp with using his style of play and his personality to kind of change the perception of Inter among fans and media culture. From the looks of it, perhaps you can forgive him this season because of the COVID-19. As we've seen, it's been very unforgiving towards Lazio. But these signs still seem to appear, this kind of capitulation, and this kind of and there is this also mismatch in footballing styles, how it's been implemented, how is he coming across? Because yes, we're seeing the defenders, although they're not keeping clean sheets, they are, there seems to play with a bit of, they are refreshing to watch, with Bastone's runs, with Godin, to kind of to kind of ease or allay the pressures on Godin and to compensate for his lack of movement. Yes, even though they don't keep clean sheets, that's fine. This is an untested back three, that's fine. But the problem, while those signs are encouraging, tactically rather than in a statistical sense, we are still seeing problems in the midfield that have not been sorted, and there is that residual. And it seems to be that Spalletti and his style of football has still had a there is still that sense of an indelible presence of Spalletti ball in that midfield, and this is not because of the players, because Spalletti train these players inside and out. It's because the players that Conte is buying or is rumoured to want do not fit the system that he imposes. Rather, it fits the system of his predecessor. So it does seem to be, ironically speaking, a team that is playing the Spalletti way in midfield, or rather you could say actually in midfield, or rather you could say it's a Spalletti team with wingbacks. So that's what is my concern, is that I'm seeing this kind of inconsistency in performances, perhaps attributed to Yes, COVID, external factors, but also endogenous factors such as a kind of mismatch in systems, not formation, but in system, in terms of how do we get from defense to attack, how do we score a goal, what is the syntax, what is the structure, how do we formulate a goal, basically, what passing patterns do we introduce, what players are involved, how do we move, how do we beat the press, how do we deal with the counter, how do we, where to go, where to cover, our responsibilities, etc. And it seems to be muddled with a kind of, surprising to say this, a kind of discordant, I would say, discordant identity. It's not really clear. It's Conte speaking nominally, saying in name that we're going to play this style of football, but in practice, the midfield, which is commanding the most of, obviously, of the territories, obviously it has 4 to 5 players in that role, in that formation, seeming to not able to deliver on that instruction, if you like, or enact on that imposition, if you like. Not able to carry it out, not able to process, not able to compute, and this is worrying. This is worrying because yes, the team is creating a lot of chances, but it's also, they're so wasteful as well, and they do attract and they do bring on a lot of pressure on themselves, and leave the defense exposed. So it is worrying times. Obviously, hopefully, with the first season and the COVID, hopefully, as time goes on, if the owners permit, Conte will be able to have more and more of his own style, be able to have his own mark on this team, be able to, impose his own mark on the team. Maybe he'll buy the right players. Tonali is encouraging. Sensei, when he comes back from injury, he'll be good. Maybe that might change the composition of that midfield. Who knows? But it is very worrying. It is very worrying, and and it's because of this kind of recent performances, really, that it has led to the kind of the most anticlimactic, or is part of the reason why this title race has been so anticlimactic, and has perhaps, really they've really let Juventus off the scruff, really, I would say. Let them off here, because this is a Juventus, yes, it's perhaps the best Juventus team in individual terms, with depths of, I don't know of how deep, with Rabiot, with Bentancur, with Pjanic, with Ramsey, with Matuidi. I mean, they've got so many midfielders, that Juventus team. They got Dybala, they got Ronaldo, they got De Ligt, they got Chiellini, and they got Bonucci. I mean, this is the best. I can't think of a better Juventus team, in my opinion, in name, not in performances, but in name. But yet, they have also played poorly. They have been all out of sorts. But yet, the other teams, like Lazio and Inter mainly, have not capitalized on it. And from an Inter point of view, it seems to be because of history, a mixture of history. Maybe there is an inferiority complex that Pazza Inter has created. I don't know if this is. I mean, this team, these set of players have not played through the 80s, 90s, and early noughties. So obviously, but maybe there's a culture. Maybe there's this kind of reified sense of, I can feel that this Pazza Inter is really palpable. I can actually sense it. It's part and parcel, it's pervasive in Inter's DNA. Maybe it's a mixture of that. Maybe it's a mixture of the COVID, the stop-start doesn't help, it's disruptive. But also maybe it's got to do with the internal, and I'm mainly talking about the endogenous aspects. The manager's system is not compatible with the players that he have. The players that he has are not able to compute or kind of correspond the instructions with their own skill set, and thus playing poor, thus having these kind of questionable performances. I don't know. The defense, untested but promising, although metrics that we use to quantify the quality of a defensive unit are not encouraging. I don't know. There's a mixture of things, and perhaps maybe the summer will perhaps elaborate and elucidate on these concerns further, and perhaps will rectify these concerns, if not. So yeah, this is the main thing about where does Inter go? Where does this capitulation? How can we get rid of it? What is the next step? How can we get rid of it? Is Conte the right guy to get rid of it? Can we consign really with confidence this Pazza label that has been haunting really the confidence of Inter Milan and the reputation of Inter Milan as a football team? I'm not talking about the institution, as a football team, footballistically speaking. Can we get rid of that label? Can we really, through this manager who can bring this winning mentality and this short-term fix and direction, can he really, take us back, not to the Pazza days, but to the glory days? Thank you very much.